My son bought me this Star Wars Millennium Falcon for my birthday, so I'm going to be unboxing it and building it and painting it. To get the inside packaging out, you've got to push the little paint tubs in and then pull the whole thing out. So we've got 8 little pots of paint. A little bottle of glue, and these are all laser cut wood. There's a paintbrush and some stickers and the instruction manual. I'd suggest keeping the box for the reference for the actual colours. Now this particular one is made by Woodworks, so according to the instructions that's what it's going to look like when it's finally done. So the first thing we have to do is get the correct pieces that house the right numbers. So all of these have got tiny little numbers with all of the pieces. In the packet as well we've got a small piece of sandpaper. So we've got 1, 2, 3 sheets, and they're all, as I said, laser cut. They should be quite easy to remove. So the first pieces that we're going to be working with are A, B, C and D. So those 2 B's, and we're going to have to take this centerpiece here, which has got the numbers on. So we start with this piece. Oh, they come out quite nice and easy. So that's our first piece out. Beautifully cut. I'll come back to the A because that seems to be a wee bit stuck. B seems a wee bit stuck as well. So I'm going to get my X-Acto knife and just cut it out a wee bit. I'm just using my tiny little blade, which comes in the shape of a pen, and I don't know whether you can see how small the blade is on that. Right, now we can start putting it together. So there's the first step. So now we're going to just find the remainder of the pieces, which is the G, H, E, F, I and J. So we can put those in. We've got G, I, and now we need to get the F and the H. Some of the pieces are not quite cut through properly, so you are going to need, as you can see with this one hasn't actually cut through, so you are going to need to use your little X-Acto knife or craft knife just to get it through. You don't want to break any of the little pieces. So now we've got the internal part of the Millenium put together. Now, you can use some of your glue to glue the pieces together, or you can first find them all and see which pieces on the outside are going to need the glue, because you don't have an awful lot of glue, it's just this tiny little tube of glue. So now we're going to be removing A1, which is on one sheet, and A2, which is on the other sheet. So we've got A1, and we're going to be placing that. So this is A, and we're including that one. I've just taken it out just to show you. So we put, and now we're going to put A1 on top of that. So it's got two slots which you need to just line up, and A2 goes on the other side. And now we're looking for B1, which is this big one. Take that one out. And adding to this particular one, we need B2, 3 and 4. As you can see, some of them have got tiny little bits of wood that stick on there, so just sand them before you put them together. So we've got the B. I'm going to flip that over because obviously that's the outside part. So, and then we've got the B2, 3. So 2, 3, 4. So 2 is the middle one, and then we've got 3 on the left hand side and 4 on the right hand side. So just put those ones in, making sure that you've got the larger side towards the end. I'm not actually gluing anything in at the moment, I'm just first assembling it, and then I will see how I want to modify it. This whole piece goes directly behind the A. I've just got to line those ones up. Some of the pieces are very loose, so you are going to have to glue them in. And the next piece we need is B5, which is going on top of that one. After having a look at the piece, as you can see, each of the pieces has got some really intricate designs and works on it. Now, when you paint your whole piece, all of that is going to disappear. So I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, so I'm going to be working on all the pieces before I assemble them. So I'm going to pull these two pieces apart that we've already put together, so I can paint them and work on everything to get some raised lines and things like that to give it a bit of dimension to it. So this whole section at the back here, as you can see, it's got a sticker, but the sticker is got very little detail on it and very small, and that sticker will go on the back there, so it doesn't look that attractive. So that's why I'm going to be doing it a slightly different way. Plus I've also decided in the back here I want to put some lights. This particular piece, which is the B1, which is the underside of the Millenium Falcon, I've got some little jump rings which are just small like that, but they fit perfectly onto all the little circles that are at the bottom here. And then I've got some beads, tiny little glass beads like that. And as you can see on the sides here, we've got these little lines going like that. So I'm going to be placing these little beads all along like that. And on these tiny little marks over here, I'm going to be using these tiny little beads as well. And the same on that little section there, I'm using these small little beads because they just fit quite perfectly. I'm going to be gluing them all on. And I'm using T8000 medium viscosity glue because it's quite a nice glue that raises up. Now, this little part of the engine here where you've got these big chunks like that, I'm using this glue to raise those particular pieces up. I'm using hot glue to raise these small sections here, and then wetting my knife to straighten them. So I'm going to be doing that small one and this one here with the hot glue. To do these tiny little ones over here, what I've done is I've just taken a Q-tips and I'm just going to be cutting them. You can cut them however you want. I find using the nail scissors works really well, and then I'm just cutting them in half and then in quarters. So I've got my pieces like that. So some of the pieces I'm going to be using the thick one, and then some of them I'm going to be cutting the other one in half so that it's a little bit thinner for some of the other piping. And then these little parts here, I'm putting the tiny little beads on them. To do this small section over here, I'm taking my cardboard and I'm using this really fine screwdriver, and I'm just scoring lines into there so that I can put a piece on there, and then I'll make the lines a wee bit thicker for that part and that part so that those pieces are all raised up. I'm using T8000 to glue my little pieces on, so I've put a blob of glue there, and now I'm just taking my Q-tip and putting it on, holding it in place, and then trimming it off. And then just do all the others exactly the same. I've got all my pieces glued on, but the ones that are going across the connection here, like that, I'll be cutting these ones, but I'm not gluing them on now. I'll be gluing them on once I've connected everything together. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that go over the connections. So I'll do those later. The ones that I've done, I'm putting the blob of glue on the end of each one and the top so that I can put my small bead on there. And just do all of them the same. I've used T8000 to glue the jump rings on as well. I've got some slightly bigger metallic beads which I'm going to be using to put on these small little circles over there. I'm going to use the T8000 to do that as well. And then just glue all of them on. Where I've got these solid circles like that, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, I'm going to be using these tiny little black rhinestones. They are self-adhesive, but I am going to be gluing them on. So I've glued a lot of the pieces on, and some of the glass beads that I was using were not sticking to the plastic, so I've had to use the mustard seeds on some of them. Some of them have stuck quite well. I don't know why the others wouldn't stick. So I've put the little black studs in, so my little piece has got a bit of dimension to it now. And I've also stuck my little pieces of cardboard that I scored and just placed a few extra little pieces just to raise it some way. For this one I've used the half Q-tip stick and then just wrapped the small pieces of cardboard around there to give it a nicer look. I'm working on some of the other pieces now, and anywhere that I've got the little dots all over the pieces, I'm just going to be using my little rhinestones and placing them all over the little dots. Some of the other pieces that I've put in are these square stones and the little pieces of cardboard that show all the little squares and things like that. And then I've also used the little mustard seeds once again. So just putting them in place and then gluing them all down. I've just taken a piece of cardboard and I've cut a 2mm piece of cardboard off. These tiny little pieces over here and here, I'm going to just be gluing the thin pieces of cardboard that I cut out. To do these tiny little ones over here, I'm going to be using these mustard seed yellow. I'm just taking 6 of those and gluing them on each side. For the top side of the front piece, once again there's those 2 little circles there, which I'm going to be putting this little rhinestones on. The other ones I've glued all the mustard seeds on and raised those sections. So, and on the one panel for the undercarriage of the front piece, they've also got little half dots and full dots just like that, which I'm going to be using my little black rhinestones for there and there. And this one I've put the little rhinestones in their place, and I've also glued some of the little tiny pieces of cardboard that we cut, and on these big sections I've used the hot glue to raise those up. So these ones are almost ready, and all these little pieces here I've scored with that tiny little screwdriver just to give it a little bit of an indentation so that when I paint it you'll still see all of those lines. For these tiny little pipes going along here, what I've done is taken some staples and just broken one off, and as you can see it's just the right size that fits onto there. So I'm going to be putting one that side, one in the middle and the other one on the other side. To make the back lights, I've taken the piece that is supposed to be for the lights and I'm just putting it onto a piece of cardboard. I've marked exactly where the lines go for the center piece and the 2 outer pieces, and I've marked it on both sides, and then I've just drawn the lines in. So I've measured each one of them to get how the line goes, and now I've just connected them. So as you can see, they taper in and then go straight and then taper up. And now I'm going to be cutting these sections out. Just so that it's not dangling too much, I'm leaving a 2mm border on each side. I've extended the lines where each piece joins so that when I'm cutting I know where to stop to change direction. And I've done the same on the ends so that I don't cut through. And now I'm just taking my box cutter and doing that. I've checked my template and it all fits in quite well. So now I'm going to be doing the exact same thing onto a slightly thicker piece of cardboard. And I've got my little window cut out and I've left these pieces in so that I can paint it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to be painting the outside and that middle strip in the grey that came with the set. I've got these flexible mirrors, and as you can see the colour blue is really attractive, and it's just a piece of plastic that is going over the mirror. So I'm going to be using just the plastic. This is not the correct way of putting it together, but because I want lights in this section, I'm going to be putting this section together so I can put my mirrors in all those little things. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking all the little parts that are K all the way up to 7. We're going to just take all those little parts out, and then so that's on the one, and then here's the next piece that we're going to be working with. So I'm just going to be removing those and then starting to assemble them. So the position for these little pieces, it goes 6, 5, 4, 3, and on this one we've got 6, 5, 4. So those are the pieces that I'm taking out now. I'm not putting them in properly because I need to see how to first put my lights in. On our other sheet we've got the K1 here. These ones are quite loose, so they're going to have to be glued in. And that's what this little piece looks like. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking some of the flexible mirrors and cutting small pieces and putting them into the little slots so that when I wrap my lights around them, they will have a nice blue reflection. Because they're so loose, I'm just going to be placing the mirrors on top of each piece and then cutting the small piece out in the center, and hopefully it'll make it a little bit tighter so they don't just keep falling out. I'm just cutting the rough shape out and then I'll clean them up with my box cutter. And then just do all the pieces the same. The easiest way to do all the little pieces is to put your mirror down and then stick all the little pieces on and then cut them all out. I've got all my pieces covered and now we can put it back together again. So you know how it goes. I'm just going to do it and then show you the result after. I'm very happy how that turned out. I'm taking a 1.25 litre soft drink bottle. As you can see, it's got quite a nice curve on it like that. And all I'm going to be doing is taking my little piece, putting it in there and heat shrinking that around. I've heated it and shrunk it around. So now that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to take it off and cover the inside of that with the blue plastic. I'm using this really thick sticky tape and I'm just going to put a piece right across the front. So the paint is all dry now. So I'm going to be putting the tape on the front and then flipping it over and putting my piece of blue plastic in there stuck to the tape. I'm just taking my mirror and laying it face down on top of my piece like that, and then the tape will pull the blue paper off. For the back window I'm using this old meat tray which has got a rather nice pattern on it, and I'm just cutting a strip out of that so that I can glue it in. I've got the blue tape on, and on the back I've put my little piece of plastic so when the light shines through it, that's what it will look like. I'm taking some of my flexible mirrors and I've just folded it in half, and I'm marking in the sections where we've got the CD where the back piece is going to be going on. I'm taking the mirror and I'm just lining it up and just marking it to that point there. And then I'm cutting a thin little strip out of there. so that my piece looks like that. And then I'm taking the mirror and I'm going to just slide it over that piece and then open them out so that I've got reflectors on the sides for my lights. And now I'm going to be just removing the backing of my mirrors and then sliding them on and sticking them in position. So I'm lining the end pieces up first and then flattening them so that they can go into the middle section here. And I'm doing them all three of the pieces that I've put in. To light up the ship, I'm just using these tiny little fairy lights like that, and I'm going to be threading them through the ship. To put the lights in, I'm just measuring how the lights are going, and then I'm taking some blue electrical tape and I'm just taping the wires together so that they're not dangling all over the place. So when it comes to gluing, it's easier for me to just put them in. So I'm doing a zigzag pattern of the lights, which will look like that, going around my ship. I'm just going to go around, and then this next one, because they're quite long in between, so I've got to bend them to hold them in position where I want them. So where I've bent it, I'm putting a tiny piece of blue electrical tape. Just a small little piece like that. Just to hold these wires together. So that they sit like that. And then we bend this one again so that it goes up to that section. And then just keep going to the end of the third triangle sections. And I'm stopping it on this point because I'm going to be putting little lights in here, and I need the lights to come out this side and then to go down on the front for the front lights. I've got all the lights in the back, and now I'm just taking some hot glue and going to be gluing these three lights down so that they keep them all in place. I'm going to be using just the plastic that covers that because I'm going to be drilling these holes out. I'm not taking these ones out because that's where the connections go. And then I'm going to be placing that underneath so that when the lights go on, the blue lights will shine out of here. I've drilled all my little holes out that I want to drill out, and now I'm going to be taking the R1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 and placing them on the 6 little points there. To glue them on, I'm using the little glue that they provided, and as you can see, I haven't gone all the way to the end because I wanted something for them to balance on. And the two that have got the slots to support it, I haven't drilled out either. So really, these are the only two that are actually going to have light shining through, because these two and these two all lie along the shaft, so there might be a little bit of light that will come through the sides of these two end ones. On the inside of all these little circles on top here, I'm taking black paint and I'm just going to be painting the insides of these. And I'm doing all of them the same. To finish off this section, I'm going to be placing the blue mirror plastic underneath there. So all I'm doing is taking a piece of my large tape and going to put a piece over there and rip the plastic off to keep it secure with the tape. And now I'm just trimming the excess tape off. I've just placed it on top because what we're doing now is we're going to take another piece of tape, but as you can see, this part here is being covered and those are where the next pieces have got to go in. So I'm just going to be cutting like a triangle so that it's only covering those holes. So I put the sellotape or sticky tape over the wood as well, and then all I'm doing is trimming the excess off the sides, and then just taking a small pair of nail scissors and slicing through these ones that the tape went over. And now we can stick our light panel in. So I'm going to be using hot glue because, as you can see, the cardboard that I used is a lot thinner than this, so it wiggles a little bit. So I'm just going to be putting a blob of hot glue in all of my little places. I'm starting off by doing just three of them at a time. After putting the pieces together, I've noticed I've made a wee mistake, so I'm going to be correcting that. So the lights are only located in this particular section, so I'm going to be removing these lights on the side and placing them on the inside so that I can brighten it up a bit more. I've repositioned the lights by taking the ones from the side here and putting them into the center piece like that. So now when I switch the lights on, they are slightly brighter than they were before. Quite happy with the result of that now. The next pieces that we're working with are C2 and D2, and these ones are for the top, and then for the bottom we've got C1 and D1. Some of the pieces are really hard to put on, so I've removed this one so I can put it on, and then while it's out I'm putting the bottom one on as well. Next pieces we're working with are C4, D4, D3 and C3, and these pieces go onto the side pieces here that we've just put on, and then that one slots over. Same on the other side. Now we're using F1 and H1, and these ones are going on the underside of the ship. That's F1 and H1. Now we're using G1 and E1. These are all for the underside. Next pieces are I and J. And now we're using G2 and H3. Some of the pieces are a little bit tricky to get in, like this one, a little bit hard. Now we've got H2 and F2. Now next ones we're going for F3 and E3 and E2. Some of them are a little bit difficult to get out. We're putting this strange one in. Long pieces going to the front. Before I go any further to complete this top section, what I have to do is, first of all, I've lined up where my little lights are going to be going out to go into this little piece. And now I've got to put the lights in to the front part. So what I'm doing is threading it through wherever I've got a little gap like here, just threading it through and around the front part. And that's so that I've got the lights in the front section like that. And now we can continue on. The next pieces we're putting together are F5 and F4 and H4 and H5. And these small pieces go into that piece, so we've got to glue these ones on. And then just put those aside to dry. Make sure when you're gluing that you're not covering this point and this one here for your connections. While we're waiting for those ones to dry, we can work on J2 and I2. So these ones just go in this position here, like that. Then we've got G3 and E3, and these ones go on here. When they've got double slots, it's just a little bit more tricky to do, so just take your time to do those. Just a little tip, because this one's got to be joined here, all along there and there. Start with the two closest so you can line those ones up first and snap those ones into place before you move on to trying to line the other ones up. The glue is dry on these little pieces, and now we can place these ones in. So one goes that side and the other one on this side. Once again, it's got quite a lot of little pieces to line up, so just take your time to line all these little pieces up. And now for the top we've got M1, and for the bottom we've got L1, so I'll just take those out. So you've got to push it real past, because there's other things that have got to go into these connections here, so you've got to push it flat. Now we've got to remove AP, AP1, AP2 and AP3. So these little ones here are AP1 and AP2. So the AP goes into AP3, and then we've got AP2, slides into the bottom there, and AP1 that goes in there. So now we're just removing all the others to make the 3 feet like this. And now we can put the feet in, and these little feet go into these tiny little slots on the side, on this panel here, and on this one. And now we're doing M2, 3 and 4. And this little piece, which has been put together like that, goes on there. And the next one goes underneath. I've got all the little feet in position. And now we're just going to place this little piece in. Now now we're on to Q1, Q2 and Q. So the big one, Q, goes out on the outside, and then the little one clicks onto there. You've got to push it as far as you can because it's got to go through the big piece, like that. On the top panel there's a small little hole just there, which you just place that one in. And that's the whole thing completed. I'm not particularly happy with the fact that this is all left open, so I'm going to be closing my section in on both sides and in the front here. To paint it now, and I'm starting on the underside so that when I turn it over it's got the little feet to stand on, so I can paint the other side. And I'm just using the grey paints that came with the little puzzle. I'm just painting a very, very light coat on it because I don't want to lose all the detail on it, and I'm just using a slightly bigger paintbrush than what was given with this particular set. But if you paint too thick, you're not going to notice any of the details on it. I've put one coat of paint on already, and I've used one and just about a half of the second pot, and as you can see the paint seems to sink into all the wood, so that's painted and that's not painted, so they're just about the same color. But I'll continue and paint the other side. I thought the legs were looking a little bit boring after painting them with the grey paint, so there's not an awful lot of difference when you can see and have a look at it. So what I've done now is I've just painted all the little pieces in black, so they look a little bit nicer in my opinion. And these little discs that will get the stickers on eventually, I'm going to be painting the outsides of these with black because the grey paint doesn't seem to cover this dark colour very well. And the same on the radar. I'm going to paint the discs on the outsides black. Once you're happy with your paint coverage and the paint is dry, then you can put your stickers on. I'm not going to be using the stickers because, as you can see, this big piece here goes over this part and I've put a lot of detail on there, so I'll just be painting all the details on. The only two stickers that I'm going to be using is this one, which is going to be going onto the side little pieces here, which I've painted like that so that they've got black outers. Because the sticker is quite small, it doesn't cover the whole piece. I've taken some of the pieces off and placed them down because it's easier to paint with them flat instead of on here where it's a bit wobbly, because I've got all the feet and all the accessories over there drying. I'm putting a piece of tape across these three and these three so that I don't get any paint in there, because I'm going to be using my airbrush to do the design similar to what is on the stickers. As you can see, this particular sticker has got the same pattern on this disc, but this sticker, which is for the other disc, doesn't have the same pattern. So that's what the pattern looks like. So I've just painted it how I want to paint it. I followed the pattern, but I've just put my own colours in. I need to modify it a bit more because I've got lights going through there. So what I've done is I've taken this piece, which that little piece is attached to, and I've just put a piece of blue paper underneath it so that the lights will shine through that little piece of paper like that. And now I'm just going to be closing this little piece in here with some cardboard. I've got a small piece of grey cardboard which is 11 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters, and all I've done is drawn some lines at the back, so the gap between there is 2 centimeters, and then I'm just going to be cutting the little grooves out there so that I can bend it to go around onto that small section over there. I've cut two pieces exactly the same, so these will be the corners. Let's fold over. This is where the middle part of the ship has got its divider in it, like that, and then the other part is where it's going to bend. So I've just placed one of them in, quite happy with the position of that. I haven't glued it or anything because I was just testing them. So now we're going to put this one in here as well. For the tiny piece that goes into the front over here, I've made the same thing. I've just made a little box like this, which I'll glue and then just squish that through. I'm starting to paint with red, so wherever the red bits are on the ship, I'm going to be painting in red because I'm not using these stickers because I've put too many details on and the stickers won't stick on. I've drilled holes into my lights and on the back I've painted them red, and now the fronts I'm going to just be painting black. It is dry on my Falcon and I've got all the little pieces on the side here, and now I'm going to be sealing it. I'm using this Brilliance seal finish and I've just decanted some into a little container and I'm just going to paint it onto my Falcon. On a plastic bottle I've taken some Scarlet Lake acrylic paint and I've just painted a very thin layer of it onto the bottle, and now I'm just taking a piece of toilet paper and taking most of it off like that, so that when the light shines through it looks like that. I've taken my little lights and I've glued it to my piece of plastic that I painted red, and now I'm just using my box cutter to cut that tiny little piece out. I've cut 2mm strips of grey cardboard, which I'm going to be putting around like that. I've painted it all. I've put the little stickers on the sides, and I've also connected the little lights by just putting those tiny pieces in there. So everything is completed now. Very happy with that. And now I'll show you what it looks like with the lights on. So those are the little front lights and the little blue pieces that we did at the top here. And that's where a little, and the back of it. But I'm pretty happy with the outcome of that. Thank you so much for watching.